Boys, 2025 just around the corner. We are literally weeks away from 2024 being over, and I'm not gonna lie, there was a bunch of amazing stuff that happened in the UFC this year. But with that being said, there's been a bunch of just terrible things in the UFC that has happened. Now, I don't have these in any specific order or anything. I don't have the first one I'm going to mention being the absolute worst and the last one, the worst. They're all pretty terrible. With that being said, let's start this off with, 2024 has to be one of the worst years, mainly because I had to witness with my own two eyes live on my TV my boy Volkanovski and Holloway both being put out and slept this year. And it was hard just to watch Volkanovski, but when you throw in someone like a Max Holloway in there as well, this was by far one of the worst things to happen. And it's terrible because Volkanovski got slept like the beginning of the year and then Holloway towards the end of the year. So I guess it was good having that little bit of a break in between, but still terrible. Still gives me nightmares to this day watching my boy Volkanovski and Max Holloway both get put out cold. And it sucks even more because Volkanovski coming off that back-to-back knockout loss, and it does still look like he's gonna fight Topuria next, even though Topuria said that he's going up to 155. I don't think the UFC is gonna let him do that. If anything, I do think we'll see, Topuria, Volkanovski, the rematch sometime 2025. And after that, I could see them letting Ilya go up to fight Islam. And a lot of people are like, Islam's going to be double champ this, double champ that. As long as Belal is champion, that boy's never going up in weight. And in my opinion, I think Belal stays champion. I don't see anyone beating Belal in a minute, to be honest. So because of that, I think we're going to see Ilya versus Topuria sometime next year. And in 2025, we might have to watch Volkanovski get put out cold yet again. And then we might see Islam get put out. But I don't know. That's just all speculation till now. Let's go down to the next thing. This one's just sad all around. Now, it's going to be Conor McGregor and the pullout of, I believe, UFC 303. And not just the pullout, but, just a downfall of this dude's career. It's sad to see. He's literally became the person he hated. He is that guy now. You go back to some of the motivating Conor McGregor speeches, he's literally just foreshadowing his career in the next few years, which is sad. And again, it's not just the UFC stuff, it's outside the UFC, just the downfall of this guy's career. And I've been saying it for months now. I don't think we ever see Conor McGregor back in the octagon. And a lot of people are like, no, now that he's lost all of his sponsorship, this dude's gonna be broke and he's gonna need to fight. I don't think that personally. Yes, he has been spending a shit ton of money. Whenever you see him, he's just out here partying. He's on his yacht. All that stuff costs a stupid amount of money. But at the end of the day, this dude was consistently posting videos with sponsorships, consistently getting some brand deals. Unless he's just next level retarded, he shouldn't be broke enough where he needs to fight. Conor also one of these guys who it does seem like he actually enjoys fighting, but pulled out of UFC 303 because of a broken toe. I don't see there being much left positive news coming out of Conor McGregor in the next year or so. You know what I mean? I think it's a 70% chance we don't see him ever in the octagon again. But a lot of people are very convinced that he's coming back. Me personally, absolutely not. I've been tricked way too many times. Dana White has came on here many times saying, yeah, what's the question? Conor? Yeah, Conor's coming back mid-2024. Mid-2024 rolls around, goes, oh yeah, Conor, he's coming back towards the end of this year. Then we get towards the end of the year and he's like, who? Conor? Oh yeah, Conor, he's 100% fighting 2025, mid-2025. Then just recently, this boy came out and was like, Conor, yeah, I'm 100% sure he's fighting towards the end of 2025. That's just constantly get pushed back. He's never fighting. Let's go down to the third thing. Simple. Mario Bautista. A new guy that everyone has hated. Fuck Mario Bautista. All my homies hate Mario Bautista. And it was off one performance alone. Who cares about anything else he's done? The fact that he went out here and said he's going to have a bloody war, stand-up war with Jose Aldo, and then immediately, as soon as the fight started, decided to hold him up against the cage. Granted, Aldo couldn't do anything, but just a gay way to win a fight, and definitely lost any credibility and didn't gain any fans, but definitely gained a lot of people hating on this dude, including myself. So simple, Mario Bautista, one of the worst things that happened in the UFC in 2024. Let's go down. Now this one, I have prospects getting fraud checked. Now it's not necessarily all of these guys were prospects nor getting fraud checked. Some of them are just prospects that, you know, ended up losing, but there are some that got fraud checked. Like, let's go through. I believe this is everyone. I'm probably missing someone because there's a lot of fights this year. Let me know in the comments below if I miss anyone. But starting off the year in Canada, you know, we had Neil Magny TKOing Mike Malott, fraud checking that boy. It ended up showing that Mike Malott has zero cardio. So that was the first fraud check, and the first fraud check of, I don't think it was a year. I think it was definitely the first fraud check of the year, if we're talking about pay-per-views, but just normal fight cards, no. I don't believe he was on the first card of the year. But let's go down. Jack Hermanson gained a decision win over Joe Pyfer. To be honest, I love this one. You know, I was never the biggest Joe Pyfer fan. You know, not the... He's just very annoying to me. So I was excited when this dude finally lost, but that was a pretty big fraud check. Then we have Jairzinho Rosenstrike TKOing Shamil Gaziev. This is more of like a meme than anything else, but still happened. You know, he was still a prospect, Shamil. Then Dustin Poirier KOing Benoit Saint-Denis. There's a lot of people, including myself, that was saying, you know, Benoit Saint-Denis is going to come out here and submit Dustin Poirier, which it did look like that could have been a possibility, but are we all forgetting this dude had staph and cardio went out the window because of that? Regardless, still got fraud checked. To this day, everyone says he got fraud checked. And then since then, I don't think he's got a win. You know, he got absolutely destroyed by Money Moicano, just bloodied up, ugly looking. Let's keep moving down though. Curtis Blades getting that TKO win over Jailton Almeida. I remember when everyone was saying Jailton Almeida is gonna run through this heavyweight division and being a very long-lasting champ. Shout out to the boy Curtis Blades for making sure that shit didn't happen. Moving down, Walter Walker getting a decision loss against Lucas Brzeski. Walter Walker had so much hype coming into the UFC, mainly because, you know, he's the bigger version of Johnny Walker. And let's be realistic, before he was in the UFC, outside of the UFC, this dude was on all the sauce. He was jacked. Got into the UFC, got fat and soft and just fraud checked. I remember making my prediction video on this one. It still haunts me that I picked Walter Walker. You know, after that, he went on I think he won his next fight, but regardless, he did get fraud checked pretty bad in his UFC debut. Let's keep moving down. Matus Nicolau getting KO'd by Alex Perez. I don't remember exactly what the betting odds were, but Matus Nicolau was definitely a pretty decently sized favorite. Plus, he was just a prospect in that division, and ever since then, I believe he's cut from the UFC now. So you know, maybe we're overhyping that dude, but that was definitely one of the bigger upsets of the year. Let's go down. Anthony Smith getting the submission win over Victor Petrino. Such a negative IQ level play from Victor Petrino, and you know, he's fighting this weekend. Hopefully, you know, he has improved and he's not as brain dead, but definitely one of the worst decision makings I've seen in the UFC in a hot minute, and a huge fraud check. Again, this is probably one of the biggest upsets of the year. Going down, Joaquin Buckley gained that decision win over Nursuldan Ryboyev. I remember when a lot of people were picking Ryboyev. I don't remember if I picked Buckley or Ryboyev, but I remember a lot of people thought that, you know, Ryboyev, this dude was going to be a huge name and a big contender, mainly because, you know, the last few letters in his last name. Turned out Joaquin Buckley pretty much easily beat this dude. Next up, one of the biggest, this dude's such a clown. I'm so glad he's cut from the UFC, but one of the biggest fraud checks, mainly because everyone was hyping this dude up way too much. Waldo Cortes Acosta fraud checking Robelas de Spain. I remember seeing so many edits of this dude, everyone acting like he's the Cuban Francis Ngannou. You know, I would see on Twitter everyone saying, Cuba, you got yourself a Ngannou now. This dude got fraud checked. So this guy was garbaggio. I can't believe we all got suckered into believing he was going to be some next level world destroyer in the UFC. Keep moving down though. This one, not really a fraud check, because it was Robert Whittaker who did get the win, KO win over Ikram Aliskerov. wasn't a fraud check, just a prospect getting the loss, getting KO'd. So I have him here. Then Joshua Van getting KO'd by Charles Johnson. Me and a lot of other people thought this was going to be a very negative turning point for Joshua Van's career. To be honest, I didn't think this dude was going to recover, because if you guys don't remember, he got dominated that fight, pretty much had very little success. Then round 3 got not flatlined, but knocked out pretty badly. And then I believe it was only like 3 months later he came back to fight in I think it was the Sphere card actually. He came back to fight there. Ended up doing really well. He got the win there, but he did get dropped a few times. Got his chin cracked, and then after that, I was very worried for him, because he's not the biggest dude in this division. He's very small for this division, and if his chin is constantly getting cracked, I was just very worried for him. But he came back, I believe, last fight card, ended up doing very well. So looks like he's back on, but definitely got. I don't know if it's a fraud check. It might have been like considered a fraud check, but it's just a prospect losing. Moving down to another prospect losing in a women's division this time. Victoria Dudakova. She was an undefeated fighter. She got decision loss. A girl who handed a bunch of prospects this year their first loss in the UFC. Talk about Sam Hughes. Ended up giving a good chunk of, maybe not prospect, but girls that were on the come up in the UFC. And Dudakova, definitely one of the girls that you could have considered a prospect in that division. Let's keep moving down though. Kai Kara-France getting that KO over Steve Ercik. Steve Ercik, after the Pantoja fight, having a huge spotlight on him. A lot of people thinking he was the uncrowned champ, thinking he beat Pantoja. A huge prospect, considering he was, I believe, like ranked number 9 in the division. Huge prospect just to get knocked out by Kai Kara-France. I don't think necessarily it was a fraud check. Again, just one of these dudes, just a prospect that ended up losing. Moving down to another prospect that ended up losing. Again, don't think it was a fraud check, because it was against Brandon Royval, a very high-level fighter in this division. I'm talking about Tatsuya Taira getting his first loss in the UFC. Then Michel Pereira gained fraud checked. In this case, he literally got fraud checked against Anthony Hernandez, 5th round TKO. Literally he had a minute and a half of cardio. After that, he was just donezo. And it's crazy because in this card, we had 2 guys getting fraud checked. We had Michel Pereira and Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips getting fraud checked by Rob Font. And Rob Font doing a bunch of fraud checking in his career. So a great gatekeeper to have in this division. Moving down, we only have a few more to go to. This one I predicted to the T. Jonana Denise gained fraud checked by Marcin Tybura, decision loss. I literally predicted this shit to a T. Moving down, one of the more sad ones to watch, recent too. Gabriel Fernandez fraud checking Wayne Kong, submission loss. This one was a sad one to see, because Wayne Kong was looking to be like a very fun prospect in that division. And a very fun female fighter, which is rare to see. It is what it is. Final one on the list, Alexandre Pantoja fraud checking Kai Asakura, submission win. This one was a no-brainer. I don't think there was like maybe 10% of people actually thinking Kai Asakura was going to get this one done. I think I predicted this fight to the T as well, getting that second round submission, Alexandre Pantoja. And yeah, I have like 2 more things to go through about some of the worst things that happen in the UFC. Another thing is, we had a good chunk of legends retiring this year in 2024, and I'm just going to give 2 examples. Tony Ferguson and Stipe both retired this year. Tony semi-retired, but the UFC don't want to give this dude any more fights. And the worst thing about that is the UFC is such a dog shit company that they did not give either of these dudes a send off, little TV performance during their retirement, which is some bullshit, especially for Tony Ferguson, one of the GOATs in that lightweight division, having a huge skid in the later half of his career. But it just shows that this company is dog shit and they don't care about their fighters. And yeah, just again, one of the worst things that happened in 2024 just shows that they have zero respect for some of the all-time greats in their company. Moving down, these goofy ass gloves that the UFC, I guarantee, spent a stupid amount of money on when they could have been using it for something else. Not only that, the champ gloves, they just looked hideous. I don't know why they went for this all gold design when, in my opinion, an easy fix to make this shit look way better, just invert the colors. All black gloves with a gold UFC logo. I think that would have looked 10 times better. And yet they scrapped those gloves immediately because they knew that shit was garbage, and again, probably spent way too much money on it when they could have spent that on something actually useful. With that being said, Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys have for some of the worst things that happened this year in the UFC? Did I miss something? I obviously missed something, because there's been a bunch of just garbage stuff that happened, but there has been a bunch of great things that happened as well. Maybe I'll make that into a video if you guys want that. But with all that being said, guys, thank you for watching to the end of the video, and there's really not that much else left to say except for I will see you guys in my next video.